And since nobody's watching us, I am way out of practice. God, clicking things, I'm all over the place. Already I'm out of practice, dude. You know, I kickstart it and I'm muted. Like, it's just the best way to start these things when you're doing live streams. Too
All
funny.
good.
How you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm glad you called me on this, you know, for those folks who, of course, the names aren't on the bottom. I got to figure out how to get the names back. But for those of you who don't know the person to the right of me, I think it's this way. Jon Overfelt is a guy that I've known for quite some time. And he contacted me the other day, really just to kind of, you know, pick our brain and get into a conversation about the world that we're in right now within the mortgage industry. Because coming out of 2020, 2021, 22 is going to be a bit different. And the energies. And I think, Jon, you described it as the fitness that we need.
Yeah, it was like I think everybody's out of shape, and it honestly it started with me. I figured out really quick first couple of weeks of the month, you know, once the calendar rolled over and I got back to like real work, that I was out of shape, and I thought about working out, like, you know, running versus the Peloton, and I started thinking, God, if I'm out of work shape, I'm betting everybody else is out of work shape, and it probably feels bad. So I called you and said, man, we need to get the word out, right? You know, just spread the word on this and see if we can help some other people in the industry.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate it. And so that we ended up talking about it, and then we are like, well, hey, we should do a video on this. And when he has, I don't think, Jon, you've never done a live, have you, before?
I have not. I
Yeah.
have not.
I mean, it's basically a Zoom with like friends and family watching, you know, like two of them, you know, but I hadn't done one in ages. I figured, what the hell, we'll just throw it out there in case anybody that we're connected to is online and wanted to follow along. Because really, this is just going to be us talking about how we get back in shape for 2022, the mindset that we need to have, because we were both sharing stories on folks that were recognizing the same thing Jon was, that, God, I don't know if I'm ready for this market, but a little bit of paralyzed with, how the hell do I get back into this? Like, where do I start? And so, you know, Jon, I'm going to start with, you know, you talked about getting back in shape again. 2021, we were all working, right? The phone was off the hook. You're meeting people, talking to people. Originators are closing loans out of the yin yang. I mean, it was bananas. So everyone's fit. What do you mean a different kind of fitness, though? You know what I mean? Like, what when you talk about that, what do you think is going to be different about this year's type of work we have to do, and where energies are going to be spent relative to the last couple of years?
Well, I think 2020 and 2021, for those that are fairly newer to the business, those are what I call unicorn years. Those come around once or twice in your mortgage career. And you might get one more run at them, maybe 10, 15 years from now. They're not coming around again for a while. So last 2 years, you really focused on, how do I get all this business through the system, right? It's coming in more than you can do. So you have to get efficient with your time. You have to get efficient with your loan app, efficient with the questions that you're asking, putting a file together, telling the story, and managing the pipeline more than getting the business. Well, now the gears have changed, right? Like, you know, inventory is still an issue. Rates are moving up. There's less business to go around because, you know, roughly, I would say half the refis that you did last year, at least half, are gone. So it's a smaller piece of the pie that everybody's going after. So you're changing gears to go out and actually make sales calls, dial what I call dialing for dollars, going to broker opens, going to open houses. And it just feels different. And it feels different for me too. I was telling Shane, we had this conversation. I've been in the business a long time. I got in the business in 98 or 99. When I started, I was having to make cold calls, which I don't like making cold calls. No, I don't think anybody does. I'm making cold calls next 2 weeks ago, and I'm mortified, right? Like, this is awful.
Yeah.
So that's what I think, right? I think if you're a manager, right, you're doing, instead of managing pipelines and pushing deals through, and you're out there probably recruiting a little bit more than you were last year, and you're probably doing a little bit more business planning with your team. And you haven't done it in a while, and it's painful.
Yeah. It's kind of an intake, versus going and grabbing it mindset, right? I mean, before the funnel was pointed at us, and there was more water being shoved into that funnel than the funnel could handle. Well, now it's not dry, but it's definitely not as full as it was, and so we've got to go get it, right? And that is where, there's obviously, of course, populations that didn't stop prospecting last year. But for many of us, it was, I talked to originators throughout the country, and they would say, yeah, I'm not even pushing send on my marketing right now because I'm afraid of what I'm going to get back. Right. And today that's the complete opposite. We've got to be thinking about, no, how can we push send more and more relevant to get more people coming? Which kind of leads into your thought pattern, because, I've seen this quite a bit with people trying to get back into this industry, or back into this market and back in shape, as you describe it, where instead of just getting to it, they want to sit back and think about it. They want to sit back and plan it. Right. It's like, okay, well, now that I got to bring the business in, let me forget everything I know about bringing business in and really think and plan and whiteboard and spreadsheet. Maybe then I'll begin to prospect. And you were saying, Shane, like, yeah, no, complete opposite. Like, sure, you got to put some thought into stuff, but to get started, it's simply just get started. And I think the phrase that you used, highest and best use, and the other one that you used was simplification. And so, for step one, getting back into it, talk about what you think people should be thinking about and how they should be approaching getting into shape for 2022 when it really comes down to a prospecting market. Yeah.
So I think, I was telling you earlier about the planning it out, putting it on Excel sheets, figuring out how you're going to target it. That's just that's easier to do than actually doing the work. And I think that's why people do it. And I was doing it. That's where the idea came from. So I'm not throwing rocks in a glass house here.
Yeah.
So it's simple as this. The first step you take is usually the thing that you dread the most or the most painful. So if it's calling your past customers, you simply got to pick up the phone and start calling them. You don't have to organize it now. Just get out there and do it. If it's going on a face-to-face sales call, you got to get out there and do it. At least for the first couple weeks, you got to get your feet wet and just simply take action. After you take the action and you kind of got yourself back into what you used to do, you'll feel a little bit better, and the rest of the steps it'll provide you clarity on the rest of the steps, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But the first step is actually doing it. You've got to do something.
Yeah. Well, it's when as adults at one time or another, many of us have let ourselves get out of shape relative to where we were in our younger days, right? And sure, if I wanted to get back and get going and put in the work, I could engineer a nutritional plan and hire a nutritionist, and I could go and hire no, I'm not going to use that treadmill. I'm going to use the best treadmill and shiny shoes and this and that. Or I can just go outside right now and start walking.
That's right.
Or start running, right? And the first one, a lot of fanciness, a lot of stuff I can talk about, but I'm no better after I've bought the treadmill, the shiny shoes, gotten the nutritionist than I was when I was doing nothing because I hadn't done anything yet. And so basically, if you found yourself where 2021 you were not working the muscles of prospecting and calling clients and calling referral partners and calling whomever, like you were saying, just Who gives a crap, what treadmill you're running on? Just go run. Just go out and do it.
Gotta do something.
Right. And so if I'm an originator trying to get back into it, what does that mean though? Who are you just contacting? Like what would be your approach and how you're going to take it down?
So if I was an originator, first thing I would do, and it depends on your security level and where you get the business, right? Some people work better with realtors, some better with builders, some prefer their circle of influence. I would start with my circle of influence. I would call customers that I haven't heard from in a while, and I would just check in with them. I would come up with some type of topic, pick up the phone, dial them, check in. We talked about it. We'll cover it in another step, but Valentine's Day is coming up on Monday. I think it's Monday the 15th.
No, you better know that, dude.
I know that. I know. It's Monday for sure. I'm pretty sure. 95%. I pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, heads up, Shane, guess what? Monday's Valentine's Day. Don't forget. We'll try to save you some heartache. FYI, do you know anybody that's looking for a mortgage? Do you know anybody that's in the business? Do you know a realtor, a builder, a CPA that I might partner well with? It is just that simple, right? That's all you've got to do. If it's realtors that you're working with, call them up. You can do the same thing. Have a subject. Maybe have a new shiny product you've got, something just to spark up the conversation. But as long as you're taking action, you're actually doing it. Yeah. That's the first step. And in the information age we live in, there's all kinds of people telling you what you should be doing, but nobody does it. That's the trick. Nobody does it. I mean, doing it is 80% of the battle.
Well, it's what's interesting is when you're creating marketing strategies and ad strategies, what you're saying is I've got a medium, I've got this thing that's in between me and my target audience, right? Social media, like I LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever it is, that's something that's in between me and my audience that I'm hoping that they can see, right? A flyer, same thing. That cardboard is what I'm hoping that they see and that they don't throw away. But if you haven't called every single client that you did a loan with last year to check in on them, to see how they're enjoying their house, or to make sure they had no questions on their refi or whatever it is, well, you don't need anything between. You're just going straight to your target audience. And everybody has in their sphere of influence at least one human being that's out looking to buy a home or possibly out in need of a cash out refinance. Maybe not a rate and term at this point because everyone did, but you could go direct to source, nothing in between. And there is business to be had in every single context. Same thing for realtors. Like I don't need to go on realtor.com and fancy marketing and social media right now. If I haven't done it forever, I'll just call the realtors I did a deal with last year on both sides, right? Buy side, list side, because guess what? Talking to them directly is much better than having LinkedIn algorithm decide if they see my crap, right? It's that simple. And then going beyond the transactions, guess what? We got a lot of past clients that we never did a deal with, right? They weren't able to find a home last year or they waited too long. We got a lot of realtors that we've tried to prospect over the years, never got a deal with. And like Jon had said, you just need a reason to call them. Hey, beginning of the year, crazy times, market's changing. You interested in getting together and talking about 2022 business plan, whatever the hell it is. And it's just a smile and dial approach, like you were saying. And it's simple.
I'll make a deal. If anybody hits me up, you can call me. You can LinkedIn, message me or whatever. If you need the idea, I'll give you the idea. Just do it. All right.
I love it.
There you go. That's a freebie.
I love it. So we've already skipped the what the heck do I say? Because it really is. It doesn't even matter what you're saying as long as you're talking to the audience that matters. And ultimately, it ends with, by the way, you or anybody else that you know need a loan. By the way, realtor, you open for coffee next week? If you just go through the list, guaranteed for the next 2 weeks, your dance card is full.
That's right. It's just a conversation. It's two human beings talking. That is it. No more, no less. So now that we've turned the engine on, though, right? Because that in its own right is going to create a lot of chaos. Because, okay, well, now I'm leaving voicemails for clients and I'm actually setting appointments with realtors. And so now I got to book my calendar out and this and that. What do you recommend once they turn that engine back on and they start flexing the muscles and they start getting in shape? What do you recommend? And I'm prompting it on the screen, of course, that originators think
about next in their process of getting back into shape in a prospecting market like 2022?
So here's the good news. The hardest part's over, right? You've probably solved for the heartburn. You're 2 weeks down the road. You've done all the dirty work. The next thing you want to do is you want to take a step back. You want to look at what you've done and start trying to get a little more efficient. From the realtors that you called or the customers that you called, do you start stack ranking them? Everybody's got those past customers that send them a ton of business or that they interact with a ton, that you just got a better relationship with one than the other. Start ranking them out, A, B, C, and D. You're going to do the same thing with the realtor, same thing with the builder, same thing for the CPA, whatever. Start stack ranking them out and have an idea of where is your highest and best use of time. And I'll throw that one out. That's JP's saying. I use it all the time. The highest and best use of time. That's where I would start next. You take a step back and just look at the battlefield and say, this is where I can gain some time and efficiency.
Yeah. And I'll layer into that. It's organization of who you've spoken to. As Jon just said, what you're categorizing them as on a go-forward basis, and when is the next time you're going to contact them. So you need a system that does all three things, because now that the engine is turned over, what you don't want to do is get through your list of past clients, get through your list of realtors that you've done business with, get through the realtors that you want to do business with, and then run out of gas and the engine die, right? You want this engine to continuously run. And that means you need to have a system of nurturing, of when you're going to nurture them, who you need to nurture, and so on and so forth. And that's why Jon's stack ranking system makes so much sense, but you got to have a platform to do it. Now, if you're really, really old school, that's Excel, that's Outlook. Strong recommendation with today's technology universe, some form of CRM. And I say that because still so many mortgage professionals do not use their CRM to its max capacity. Hell, they don't even use it for 50% of their capacity. Industry leaders like Dave Savage have made a killing just teaching people, use your CRM, as part of what you do. And so if you turn this engine over and you don't want to have to restart it again 6 months down the line or the next crazy change in the market, you got to get yourself stack ranked into a CRM. Now, Jon, you and I had spoken about this, and I still think this is kind of in cleaning up and prepping. We still haven't done out of the box stuff, right? Like, we're not talking SEO and digital strategies. We're simply talking about talking to clients. And the thing that I like about this is there is now you can begin to engage into the thoughtfulness, because it's simple to do, because the outcomes are finite. They're very simple. If you call a client for a loan, there's only two outcomes. Either you're going to get one or you're not. If you call a realtor for a meeting, either you're going to get one or you're not. And so the next step, in this process is not just organize and set up for the next touch, but plan for what the results are of your contacts, so you can maximize the get the most out of what you just did. Meaning, if a realtor says, no, I'm good on the meeting. Okay, what are you going to send them follow up in the short term to where they remember that interaction, to where they get the most out of it? Let's go the opposite. Let's say they will meet with you. What are you bringing? What are you preparing? How are you getting ready for that meeting with the realtor to assure that you're going to get it the highest and best chance of getting business out of that realtor coming out of the meeting? So now it's time to sit down and prepare for what the outcomes of these simple actions are going to be. And do you have any thoughts on that? In terms of how originators should be thinking about like first meetings with realtors or, clients? What do you send a client after they say, no, I don't know anybody, or I don't need a loan right now? Like, what's your follow-up actions and recommendations?
Both kind of blend together from step 2 to step 3. So one of the things with the CRM or whatever platform you want to use, first thing I would tell originators out there, if you're not using the CRM or if your company's not providing access to it, these things are dirt cheap today. I mean, super cheap. Don't let the word technology scare you. You can buy one that will do more than you can ever imagine for, a couple $100 a month. That's one. Second part is, the follow-up is where the magic's at, because follow-up is what I call small promises. Small promises build trust. If I tell Shane, I didn't know Shane from Adam 2 or 3 years ago, but if I said I was calling him back, I called him back. And if he said, Jon, I'm going to call you on Thursday at 2:00, he called me on Thursday at 2:00. So that builds trust. if whoever you're targeting or interacting with, that's your chance to build the trust level. The majority of the time, we're all in sales, right? And the majority of the time, they're not just going to say, sales doesn't start with yes. Sales starts with no. And that's where you're really going to start building the bridge. So I guess that's the first part of it. The second part is value. I think value is, value to me is, it's something that you're comfortable doing, and it's got to be part of you. It can be several different things. What value is not in the mortgage business, and this may or may not ruffle some feathers. It's not service, it's not products, and it's not price. In this market, that gets you in the stadium. It is not going to get you on the field. Yeah. If you can't close loans quickly and efficiently, they ain't calling you back. If you don't have the products and your price isn't competitive, the consumer's not going with you. So to me, it's defining your value, something that you're comfortable with. Maybe you like messing with tax returns. If that's the case, I would brand myself the self-employment expert. There is a huge opportunity out there for somebody to just go and brand themselves the self-employment expert and take it and run with it. There's a huge opportunity for somebody to be the condo expert with all the changes that have been pushed down in condo land in the last 6 months. Newsflash too, when you go out and you brand yourself, because here, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh my God, John, I don't want to read through all these tax returns. They're not going to just send you all their self-employed people. They're going to say, oh my God, Shane is a self-employment guy. You need to call him. Person calls, Shane does one self-employment deal, and then somebody else, he's top of mind for that person. The next person says, hey, I just had a loan go with Shane. It went awesome. You need to call him.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah. Yeah. And that stage for most is the most difficult, because what you just described is not, I have this shiny toy that you can look at, like you said, this really funky, unique product, if you're a loan originator, or if you're a hiring manager trying to recruit, my technology stack is so good. What you're talking about is introspectively, what is my value to this relationship? What am I bringing to the table that you can't get elsewhere? And what I find in our business is folks have a really difficult time selling that, because it's not tactile. You can't see it, right? You can't touch it. It's an idea, it's an emotion, it's a vision. And then for the ones that can define it, they have twice as hard of a time learning how to project it. Because, none of us want to come across pompous, you know what I mean? Like if you're the condo, I'm the best at this. And it's just not a natural thing, because we're afraid to put it out there in that way. This is an area that people really need to sit down and spend some time on.
Yeah. And it's got to be something that you're comfortable doing.
Correct.
Otherwise you're just not going to do it. And it
Correct.
needs to be that specific. I mean, I was thinking that I ordered DoorDash today. It's crazy to me that somebody just came up with a huge business platform of delivering food to your door.
Yeah.
But what they did, they removed the friction point on something that's so basic as getting you food. It's really that simple.
Yeah. Yeah. And now the other component that you led with, in terms of the follow-up, is building the trust and setting the expectations. And that's an interesting thought. When I had talked about the finite outcomes, if I talk to a borrower and I don't get a loan, what do? Having something canned that you're going to send to every borrower. Like, you don't have to get creative. Oh, hey, you know what though? I've got a tax checklist, that you need to be aware of, or, a spring cleanup checklist that I'll send you because spring is coming. You got to get your house ready. Whatever it is, when you're done, okay, hey, great. Good to hear that you don't have any friends. You need a mortgage, but hey, I'm going to send you something. Just take a quick look at it. I do this around my house, and it's had a huge impact on keeping my house, healthy and less maintenance and blah, blah, blah. It's a spring cleaning checklist, whatever the hell it is. And then you send it. You're reestablishing, I'm going to follow up and follow through on what I tell you I'm going to do. And so that's where defining what you're going to do at these finite outcomes matter, because it's giving you a chance to add value. And it's giving you a chance to show these people that you're going to follow through on things that you say. But the bigger one, and you did, you kind of hit it. We've got to define our personal value overall, because that's going to then, obviously seep its way into all of our conversations and next steps. But from here, I look at to use your kind of analogy, the price of admission of starting the engine, getting the fitness back. Because what we just talked about is, nothing that, someone smarter than us couldn't come up with. We talked about calling people, be consistent, be accountable, have a reason to call them, organize it, and build trust, right? And that right there, guys, is your next 2 months. Like you don't need to implement anything brand new into your business. You don't need to do anything funky. If you just do that, you're going to get more relationships, more meetings, more loans. Once that engine is running, now you have time to really sit back and think, okay, now what can I do out of the box? What can I fine tune? What am I missing? And Jon, I think the phrase that we used was, filling in the gaps, right? Because this clearly isn't the overarching strategy. Like this isn't hitting every single thing. This isn't doing your social media. This isn't your digital, whatever your jam is. Once they get this fitness back, how do you go about identifying what gaps you have, right? Because without spinning out, and I'm going to share my screen real quick. There's a guy that Aaron Leck, and I don't know if you know Aaron. He's a leader with Axia up in Minnesota. Really good dude. And I saw him put this post out there and I loved it. And it was, kind of the decision to take on, and I don't know if it's sharing my screen, but a new project. Do you have time for it? No, don't do it. Do you have, do you have enough time to do this? Yes. No, you don't. Don't do it. And it was just like a kick in the pants reminder. Don't take on too much. Don't try to, do too many projects at one time, because if you do, you're going to burn yourself out. You don't have time for it. But now that we have this engine up and live, there are things that each of us can engineer into our business. How do you evaluate what gaps are missing? And then within that evaluation, decide what to take down first, because that's a prioritization thing, because you can't do it all at the same time. You know what I mean? So how do you fill in those gaps now that your business is starting to run and you're back into 2022 fitness?
I think it's as simple as the feedback you get from the customers you're going after. I think they're going to tell you their objections are going to be where you need to fill the gaps. I know it sounds super basic, but like whatever barriers they're coming up with is probably the barriers you need to fill. And then I love that diagram you put up there. So one thing that changed my life was I always set goals at the beginning of the year. It started off like with 10, and then none of them got done. Right. So I've gone from 10. I went from 10 to 5. Now I'm down to 3. Yeah. You only can implement what you have time to do. Yeah. There's only so much time in the day, especially now, right? You're in we're in the technology age. I swear the next phase we'll go into in life is a time phase, because you're pulled in so many different directions and everything is so pushed at you. So only implement what you have time to do. Listen to your consumer, listen to your client. They're going to tell you what's going to have the biggest impact and what you need to solve for. Yeah.
And that right there, I think, is actually the future of our industry. It's a consumer-centric industry right now, right? Us on the sales side, we think we're the most important, and we want to put ourselves front and center. And realistically, right now, this industry is being run by the consumer. Consumer behavior is changing. Where they want to get their information is changing. How they want to be educated, how they want to be served is changing. We don't get to control that. The consumer knows what they want and what they need, and how they're going to choose to find their partners, and how they're going to choose which partners they work with. And it's up to us to decide if we want to be there or not. And so, that's a great way of looking at it, because the consumers might not directly give you the feedback. Oh, Jon, you were missing this, so I didn't do business with you. But you're going to see where realtors choose to do business with. You're going to see that consumer, oh, they did a loan. They working with who? What? And that's going to tell you where you missed out on. That is going to help give you the roadmap to fill in the gaps. That's really smart. I like that.
Well, I think it's very important for the originator to ask the client or the consumer why they didn't choose you. Yeah. And if someone said, well, you didn't have an arm. Well, maybe you didn't offer an arm. I don't know. Yeah. Or you didn't call me back quick enough. I had to make a decision last night. Or I had the XYZ could lock my loan and you couldn't. Or the realtor says, well, they said your appraisers are not good in this zip code. Whatever. I mean, if you're not asking, you're not going to know. So if you don't get the deal, make sure you ask why you didn't get the deal, and just politely say, "Hey, look, I'm trying to make myself and my company better. Can you tell me why I missed out this time?" They're 90% of them are going to tell you.
Love it. And I would add one more question to that. And if you don't mind me asking, can you tell me how you found the person that you did business with?
1,000%. That's
right?
A great idea.
Because getting to the consumer right now, that's the game. You know, I mean, the funnel that we lived with from the 90s or early 2000s was a single funnel. It was realtors, right? People were doing the for sale signs, newspapers. Oh, I'm going to go look to see buy that house. And that realtor said, I need you to talk to John to see if you can afford it. You know, now with, you know, the advent of the interwebs, you know, Lending Tree's grabbing them, Zillow's grabbing them, digital ads are grabbing them, and the traditional still exists. And we just don't know how the hell they're finding their end partner. And it's important to understand where your clients, where your market, where your community is finding their partners. Because again, it's up to us. Do we want to be where the consumer is? The answer in most cases is yes. So you better know where they are, and that's going to help you engineer it. So yeah, I love that line of thinking. But John, yeah. So this is it, man. This was your first live, and I hadn't done this for forever. We've actually, you know, we've had a few suckers come in and out. You know, I even threw some comments on LinkedIn onto this. But anything else that you want to throw into this thing? You know, and if not, we can end it.
No, the only other thing I'd wrap up and just say there is no perfect. Don't try to solve for perfect. Perfect's a terrible place to live. Okay, just you got to start somewhere. Just go out there and get it started, and I promise you, if you do it a couple hours a day, 2 weeks from now, you'll feel like a champion. You'll come out better on the other side.
You'll be in absolute tip top shape. So, John, that was fun, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You take care.
Bye-bye.